Welcome to Business Leader Breakthroughs, where we help unlock the potential in you, your teams, and your business. I'm your host, Ryan Castle, along with Dr. Mike Ashby. We'll share insights, experiences, and stories on achieving breakthrough success in business and life. In addition to a podcast, The Breakthrough is a coaching and advisory business that provides programs for business leaders, owners, and managers to develop your skills and capabilities to boost your business and enjoy a better life. To learn more, click the link in the episode show notes or go to thebreakthrough.co. Now let the breakthroughs begin. Welcome along to our Breakthrough Leaders podcast. I am joined, of course, by my trusty friend and business partner here. Mike, welcome along.
Trusty Dusty.
Trusty Dusty. Let's not explore why you're referred to as Dusty. No. Old and crusty?
Just age.
No, okay. let's not go any further with that.
Okay.
I've got a little topic I'd like us to talk about today, which we seem to be quite good at doing on these podcasts. Mm-hmm. And really it's the, here's a question I ask a lot of the members that we work with. What's your greatest asset?
Our people.
Correct.
Yes.
Well, kind of correct.
Yeah.
Because that is most common response is our people. And we are actually in this episode going to be talking about a framework for working with people. Mm. But what's the real answer to our greatest assets?
Actually, property. I was just thinking of a business, and I think, they do such a poor job with their people. They do such a poor job with their customers that actually their greatest asset, quite genuinely, is the fact that they own the property. So that's an exception.
It is. We could take this down a whole McDonald's, Ray Kroc kind of business model scenario. Don't worry about selling hamburgers, own the property. But that is not our focus for this podcast. Focus.
We should be, and that business would be a whole lot better, and even its property would be more valuable if they took care of their people.
Yes.
Because the business would be a whole lot more valuable. They would pay a whole lot more rent. It just all goes. But it is, yes, that was a slightly facetious answer. Slightly even, dare I say it, mischievous.
Yeah.
Back to the point.
Well, yeah, and back to the point, and let's diverge for just a moment first before we come back to the people.
Okay.
And if you're struggling to follow us, don't worry, it all makes sense in the end. It's thinking, well, we talk to our members about actually your greatest assets are what you own personally, and that's your time, energy, and attention.
Yeah,
so where you place your time, what you give your energy, and what you give your attention to, because most things in life are actually skills that can be learned.
Totally.
And it's what you apply your time, energy, and attention to, which creates the real results for you. But if we were to say in this podcast, we're going to give our time, energy, and attention to people.
Yeah. Here's how we'd think about it.
And it's a great, truly people are what make a difference in our organisations, regardless of scale.
Well, an organisation is just a bunch of people doing processes. That's all it is. So your organisation is nothing but people and processes.
Yeah. Were we trying to make them feel excited and sexy about their businesses? People and processes? That sounded like an engineer's definition.
I know, but kind of bring it right down. So get good people and do their processes right.
Absolutely.
You've got a great organisation. It's really that simple, isn't it?
It is. And so often where organisations struggle with getting their strategy executed, where they're trying to head, is that their people and the processes are not aligned and empowered to do that.
For sure.
And look, I think we need to acknowledge how much the work environment has changed. I know when I got my first job, I was with Yates, the garden seed company. And look, I had some amazing learning there and transferred from New Zealand to Australia and had quite the start to my career. But I remember the conversation with my dad when I'd been at Yates for about 3 years, and I told him that I was going to leave and work somewhere else, and he was horrified. And he's like, well, did they fire you? And I was like, no, they haven't fired me. It's all good. It was like, well, why are you leaving? And I think it's that in days gone by, the scenario was you joined an organisation.
For sure.
Sometimes you worked for them for 40, 50, 60 years, and unless they fired you, you stuck around.
Right. Yeah.
And I think times have changed significantly around that, and trying to think about now what is it that people are looking for in the organisations that they join.
Oh, totally.
It's changed a lot.
Yeah, I was reflecting on this myself, and I was going to make some comment about how my first job was cleaning steam engines, but but it probably in my in my working life, going right back, if I'd started work when I should have instead of whiling my days at university, that is a major change. And it was really with the restructuring of the 80s that companies changed. They changed. For the first time there were mass layoffs and mass changes, which just threw people off the boat left, right, and centre. Now, I think about millennials, and I think that most of what's written about millennials actually applies to pretty much any generation. I'm really sceptical about generational comments.
Yes.
However, I have seen evidence. I do believe that the most ambitious millennials, and that's different from a whole bunch of the other ones at the other end, but the most ambitious millennials who we all want to employ because they're really smart and super switched on, their question of you as an employer is, what are you going to give me? In particular, how am I going to develop while I'm here? And a lot of these people, they will follow managers. They will follow the managers who will teach them stuff, where they will learn stuff. And when they're all learned up, next one, next opportunity. So, we've got to think about the kind of organisation that, our employer brand, and how attractive that is to the highly talented people that we want in our organisation.
And I think the other thing that comes through very strongly with anyone joining your organisation, but yes, we see it in the millennial research a lot as well, is how connected do I feel to what your organisation is doing? So yes, how will you help me grow and develop? But I'm really interested in that.
Totally.
Money is often a fourth or fifth kind of priority, and it's what we call a hygiene factor, where they go, hey, look, I want to be remunerated in line with my value, but it's not my driver here. It's not my key driver, at least.
Well, they're really conscious of the value they bring, and they're really conscious of the value they expect to get. And that connection piece, I think that's exactly the word. How do I connect to the organisation in terms of its purpose, what it's trying to do, its values, its culture, what sort of place is this that I'm going to be spending my working time at, because my working time is precious. I mean, it's good attitude, and it's kind of, it holds employers to a higher standard of accountability. They should be providing that kind of environment.
And with this in mind, I've come up with a little model that I call the 5 Olympic rings of people. It started for me when I was interviewing for roles here at the Breakthrough, and just thinking about a framework that I could have in mind when I was talking to potential candidates that were coming through and looking to join the Breakthrough, that would help me centre around the things that I think were important, but not have me go, right, here's the 50 questions I'm going to ask you in order. So it was kind of that framework. Why the Olympic rings? Partly because I had 5.
Because you're a sports nut?
Yeah, sports nut. I think Olympics, it says high performance. It says we want high achievers, people that win in the world. So it was that. And I was trying to think of a model that had 5 things in it. It was like, the Olympic rings has 5. Let's run with that. So here's the model. It has 3 C's and 2 R's. 3 C's and 2 R's.
Creedence Clearwater Revival twice.
Something like that. So think about a picture of the Olympic rings, and look, we'll put a downloadable on the podcast link so you can access this. But the first one is around career. The first C is career. And whenever I think about these, I'm always thinking about what's our perspective as an employer, and then what's the perspective of someone that might be joining our organisation. So when we think about career, where would I like their career to develop while they're here? And let's gain some insight as to, if you join our organisation, how do we fit into your career path and what you're trying to achieve? Let's make sure those things are aligned. Now, let's not get confused that we have to plan the person's career and we expect them to be here for 50 years. Very, very unlikely to happen. What do they say now? Most people will have something like 7+ very, very different job roles in their career. And then the number of organisations seems to be changing frequently as well.
Actually, even at my advanced stage, I've had a number of careers. Not just jobs, but careers. So we'd expect that to multiply.
So the first one, talk about career alignment. Where do you see the person going, and where do you see them? Where do they see themselves going in their career? The second C we talk about is culture and values. And we've recently been looking at a lot of research around how you create or help to shape. That's a great
high performance
word.
culture.
A high performance culture, great word. Shape a high performance culture, because you don't create it, you do shape it, and the alignment of culture and values is so important. I was at a event a couple of weeks ago where Mariana Lowry of a New Zealand software company called One Centre, she talked about her lessons in hiring people.
Oh yeah.
And her number one lesson was hire based on values.
Yeah. There's a famous story about Jack Welch who said that, you know, GE was obviously a very successful company. Under his watch, it really took off when they started not just to hire people on values, but fire them as well.
Yes.
So if people didn't share the values, if people's behaviour didn't reflect the values, they went. And what's more, there was no kind of nice stuff about, kind of left to pursue personal interests. It was, didn't share the values, making it really clear, this is the kind of organisation we are, this is our culture. I've been thinking so much about culture for a very long time, trying to get to the heart of what that high performance culture looks like. And it's absolutely fundamentally based on on values, but it's in action, not in words. So many of the values exercises that people do are about words. Culture is modelled, not made.
Yes.
So culture, it is will in action. It's not words on paper, it's not words on screen, it's what you do. That's what shapes the culture. And it's the identity of the organisation, and it exists at the lowest level of the org chart. That's where the culture sits. And at each point, that culture is mediated by managers.
Yes.
Whether you've got 10 layers or 2, that culture is being transmitted, intermediated from whatever you think you've got at the kind of director table or the MD table through to the person on the shop floor. That is going through managers, and they are either, as a thing I'm working on at the moment, they are either amplifiers or mute buttons for the culture.
Yes.
So those values, understanding what they are and the kind of culture you want and the behaviours that have to go with that. It's a big job. It can be done, but building a high performance culture is a big job.
It's a big job, but the one that you get the most return on your investment from, because it truly is the thing that unlocks your potential in an organisation.
It's the only sustainable competitive advantage, because a high performance culture enables you to adapt your strategy on the go.
Yes.
Because you've got people on the shop floor who are saying, you know what, this is not working. It's not just this process, but this is what the customer seems to be wanting. Well, you know, when you've got people on the shop floor saying, hey, we need to change, we need to adapt, you've got a self-regulating performance culture. You've got something that doesn't matter what the market throws at you, you're going to be okay. Your financials, your revenue and your profit will be okay, because you've got an organisation that's able to change and remain relevant in the marketplace.
And been looking at some research by a culture expert called Marcus Buckingham, and he says the really, really important piece of values is values at a team level, as well as an organisation, but at a team level. And obviously, if you're running a reasonably small business, your values might be business-wide and team-wide, because that's how small your team is. But as your organisation grows and gets bigger and gets more layers and more managers that are helping to distill that down, actually it's the values inside the team that people really feel and or align or don't with very, very quickly.
And it's that point of connection. It's tribal, it's that identity, it's, you know, who do I belong with? What's my sense of belonging? Am I with like-minded, like-hearted people? That's what values are about.
Yeah. And I think that point you make there, Mike, about being like-minded is the logical thought, but we all know the heart piece. We know we can feel it when we're in a team that we're aligned with. And it doesn't have to be words on paper. It's definitely the heart and emotional piece as well.
Heart, hands, and mind.
So we've talked about career, we've talked about culture and values.
There's a third C.
Well, I'm going to jump to an R, because it makes sense. The next one I'm going to talk about is responsibility. And responsibility is being really clear what you feel the expectations for that person's role is going to be. So what is it that they are going to be responsible for in your organisation? And I think many of us are poor at understanding that in advance. We kind of go, we've got an empty seat, we think we kind of need someone, let's bring them in and we'll figure it out. Hey, look, adjusting and adapting is okay, but making sure you get a good fit with a person, having good clarity around the responsibility and articulating it to that person so they can get a sense of whether that's something that they want to do and that it plays to their strengths.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of points about it. I think that Gallup book called It's the Manager, which talked about, you know, the levels of engagement and manager responsibility. Its survey, global workplace survey, found that 50% of people did not know what was expected of them at work, which is kind of, well, what are they doing? And why don't they know? So that's point one, is kind of, wow, that's a fantastic opportunity to get clear. The second thing I like about responsibility is that it's not using the word accountability. I've always felt that when managers talk about accountability, they're saying people being accountable to them.
Yes.
That they're, you know, that you know,
It's got a very hierarchical
it's
kind
got
of
a
feel
very
to it,
hierarchical, did you do what I told you to do? Whereas, and nobody kind of puts their hand up for more accountability. Oh, please make me more accountable for this. I really want to be accountable. But they do put their hands up for responsibility.
Yes.
People like to be given responsibility. Ambitious people like to take responsibility. And it's just a much more powerful and empowering concept, I think, than accountability. Accountability is something that basically gets done to you. Responsibility is something you do. And I think that, you know, that switch in thinking is really important. I think it's a conversation, a much better conversation with somebody to say, hey, what are you going to be responsible for? Responsible includes, what are you going to have ownership of?
Yes.
And we know that part of the engagement piece is absolutely about people's sense of ownership, people's sense of connection. So think responsibility, not accountability.
And coming back to the very first point we talked about is what are people looking for? They're looking for growth.
Yeah.
Growth comes with responsibility.
Correct,
You know,
absolutely.
and so that's why they typically stick their hands up and go, hey, I'm here to grow, I want to learn, I'm going to need more responsibility to make that happen.
And you can still hold people responsible. I mean, it is a language thing, but it's a concept as well. You can certainly, if people take responsibility, they're responsible for that outcome, and you can assess their performance against that responsibility for sure.
Yeah, which brings us to the third C being capability, and I think this is where a good conversation happens with people around, hey, we've got clear what you're going to be responsible for. Let's talk about what capability you will need to do that. Now, depending on the role, what you're hiring for, our view is that most things are skills that can be learned.
Correct.
If you bring a growth mindset to the role, we can figure that out. But we do want to be clear on, do you have the capability right now?
Yep.
Because we might need to get you into some training, we might need to get you into some development, we might need to do those kind of things so that you can meet the responsibility. But let's articulate where the capability piece is at the moment.
And in the hire, you know, specifically talking about the hire, my philosophy has been, well, bring in somebody, preferably internal, who's got 80% of the role, and we can grow their capability, rather than bringing in somebody who's 120% of the capability.
Yes.
Because we've got the best they've got to offer. We don't need any more, and there's no kind of forward path for them. We're probably going to lose them anyway. So having that kind of clarity about what are the development opportunities for them and for us and what we do, and then people are not kind of having to work it out for themselves and do stuff that's a bit risky, and you go, well, why did you do that? And they probably thought, well, actually I was trying to work out how to do it. Instead we've said, well, you made a mistake. So, you know, having that agreement about a capability path, I think is really important.
And look, there are numerous tools now to help assess capability, you know, above and beyond a straight discussion about where someone assesses their own capability. Lots of psychological insight tools that allow you to do that, and we've seen a whole host of them, and my view would be used in conjunction with other areas of the interview process. They can be really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't rely on them solely,
Yep.
because they're not the sole indicator, but as a complement to what's going on.
Well, as much as anything, they might fly a red flag. They might say, hey, you know, there's a risk here. Actually, I think most of those survey tools, I seem to remember somebody who was so keen on, they were working for one of those organisations and got really keen on it and decided to do a master's thesis on their value. Actually, research showed no relationship between alleged fit in the psychographic and actual performance. What it did show, though, was that where there were red flags which were ignored, they did fail.
Yeah, right.
So as much as anything is for that, it's
Good.
kind of
It's like the warning light on the dashboard.
pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, our final Olympic ring and the final R is remuneration, or the dollars. And for me, this is a sensible commercial conversation around what's our expectation of what this role is worth, what's your expectation as someone joining our organisation and what you're trying to achieve, and what's your now view of the world and what's your likely horizon view of remuneration. No, it's not the highest motivating factor, but it is something that needs to be discussed in all of these situations. So having that as one of the things you make sure you cover off is key.
I think you've probably just got to remember that, particularly in today's market, I think it's quite odd, isn't it, that we're in an era of AI and the future of work being there's no jobs for anyone, etc. Actually, we've got totally full employment. We've got an incredibly tight labour market, and that just means that there's more demand for labour than there is supply, and I believe, according to economics, that means the price goes up. So you might think that this job is worth X, but it's probably X plus, because there's a lot of competition for labour. It's just a market. We benefit on the other side. This is how it is now. Live with it.
And the doomsday around, oh my God, AI is going to take over the world and there's going to be no jobs left. I'm pretty sure we've had about 100 of those different events in history. I mean, you'd remember when the steam engine came and people were panicking, weren't they?
Well, it was the horses who were panicking. And how's your driverless car going, by the way?
It's not.
Superb.
It's not yet. Yes, but is that regulation or technology?
Well, either
Debate for another day.
Debate
for another day. So look, the 5 Olympic rings of people, I don't prescribe it to be a all-encompassing model. It's just something that I use. It keeps it top of mind when I'm discussing roles with people to make sure that I'm covering off what I see as the key areas. I think it works well. And I've also used it not just in a hiring zone, but also in discussion with existing team members. Just kind of going, hey, let's check in. Where are you at on this? How are we doing on that? What's your aspiration here? So we can keep aligned.
And I think the career discussion, I think the capability discussion, they're both great. I think the culture and values one is a really good challenge for us to be thinking about. And the responsibility piece with having that clarity is just such a wonderful opportunity. But grappling with what is the culture here? What are our values is a great conversation to have with yourself and with your team.
Yes, and high performance organisations have these conversations regularly.
Yeah, they do. They talk about this stuff.
They talk about this stuff, right? It's not just that, great, we did it in your interview, it was 3 years ago and we haven't talked about it since. It's about keeping these things top of mind and continuing to talk about them and evolve as people, as teams and as a business, how we can further grow and develop.
For sure.
Great.
Cool.
Hope you use that. As I said, we'll have a link for you for the model that you can download and access. If you think someone else in your circle is using models to talk to people, to think about how they hire the best people for their teams, we'd love you to share this podcast out with them and get us connected.
Get us connected. We'd love to have your comments, any views that you've got. Let us know.
All right. Thanks for joining us today. See you on the next one.
Cheers.